Pittsburgh can never just win a game normally. There has to be some kind of craziness to it. It has to be intense. And the Steelers, if they make the playoffs this year, they're going to get crushed just based on what I saw today. But we'll talk about that in a minute. I want to start with saying, first off, a win is a win, and I'm very glad we got this win. It was a fun game. It was a fun game to watch despite all the unnecessary stress and all the mistakes that we'll get into. But we should all be understanding that Russell Wilson, if he had played this game, Seattle would have won in regulation by probably 2 scores. No, it was really, you have a competent quarterback in there. I'm not saying Geno Smith isn't competent, but Geno Smith was, if he was average, he would be starting on an NFL team right now instead of backing up Russell Wilson, barely seeing any playing time whatsoever. So Geno Smith is a below average quarterback. If you had an average quarterback for Seattle, they would have won this game probably. So we can celebrate the win, but it's not a good win per se, if there is such a thing. All right, let's get into some notes from the game. The Steelers came out in the second half. They even told Mike Tomlin even told Michelle Tafoya this, that they expected Seattle to chase big plays, to try to get the ball to DK Metcalf, to lock it downfield, that kind of stuff. Something that Seattle usually does a lot with Russell Wilson and does very well. They did the exact opposite of that. They ran the ball and just ran the ball over and over, pounded Pittsburgh constantly from the very first possession of the second half. And Pittsburgh did not have an answer for it until the fourth quarter. They spent an entire quarter trying to figure out what they were doing defensively. Because their defensive game plan in the second half was to stop big plays. And Seattle did not do anything like that whatsoever. Because Seattle understood that, hey, our quarterback is Geno Smith. So maybe it's not a good idea to throw the ball 50 yards downfield and get to Minka Fitzpatrick, Joe Hayden, when we have Geno Smith as their quarterback. So what do? Well, they have a very run-based or run-oriented offensive line. A lot of big bodies, lots of guys like Damian Lewis up front who are great run blockers and not necessarily proven pass blockers. What would they do with those guys? Well, they ran the ball with Alex Collins, a very good running back who's been underrated, who's very good at breaking tackles and creating yards after contact. And look what happened. Look what happened. They ran all over Pittsburgh in that second half. I mean, Pittsburgh looked totally gassed. Alex Collins finished the game with 20 carries for 101 yards. Travis Homer had some good carries, 2 for 27. DJ Dallas had some explosive plays, 4 carries for 17 yards. And if you just watch that, Pittsburgh looked totally outmatched up front. I think the part of it's because, again, you don't have Stephon Tuitt because he's dealing with some injuries and personal issues as well. Tyson Alulu is out for probably the entire season. I think it was a broken or fractured ankle, something like that. So he's going to be gone for most of the season, probably guess the entire season. And a lot of the guys you have up front now are smaller. I mean, Cameron Hayward's the only one. Cameron Hayward had a really good game, by the way. Cameron Hayward's the only one holding his own up front. Everyone else is getting blown off the line of scrimmage. And guys like Joe Schobert and Devin Bush at the second level, these guys are not going to get off blocks cleanly. They're not. They're not going to shed blocks, and they're not going to come down and be hammers in the running game. So, yeah, I was just very disappointed in Pittsburgh's defensive game plan and how the defense was able to not adjust or handle Seattle's running game for most of the second half. What else we got to talk about? The linebackers and safeties for Pittsburgh that were down, because they did have safeties coming down near the line of scrimmage or in that linebacker level for a lot of the game. They allowed way too many completions underneath to running backs and guys. So basically, would give running backs would come out, they would sit down anywhere between 4 to 6 yards past the line of scrimmage. They'd catch the ball, and they end up getting somewhere between 6 to 8 yards on just catching the ball from Geno Smith underneath. Again, this is Geno Smith as your quarterback. Seattle's not going to try all those deep shots because it's Geno Smith. So they're giving him all the short stuff, all the easy stuff. And Pittsburgh's giving the running backs that yardage. And they're staying on schedule as an offense, Seattle is, because you're getting 6 to 7 yards for every one of those completions. So you're getting it with second down and short. And no one's getting even close to these running backs on these completions. So it was just an awful game plan for Pittsburgh in that third quarter specifically. But also in the fourth quarter with how they were managing the coverage of those running backs coming out of the backfield. Most guys were just sitting down a couple of yards beyond the line of scrimmage because no one was anywhere near them. Guys would come 4 or 5 yards off the line of scrimmage, sit down. The Steelers defenders would give them 3 to 4 extra yards of space. And it was just it was an awful defense to watch. It was terrible. That's all I can say. Like I said, Cameron Hayward and then TJ Watt in the fourth quarter were the only ones who actually, on the defense, that impressed me this game. Alex Highsmith as well. I should say Alex Highsmith did play pretty well for most of the game. But those 3 guys. Everyone else, no, I wasn't very impressed at all. Let's see. It took until the fourth quarter for the Steelers to actually take a game page out of Seattle's game plan and really follow what they were doing on offense, because Ben, while he was throwing the ball all around in the first half, things did not go that way in the second half, specifically in the third quarter, which is really where everything just kind of went to crap for Pittsburgh. I know they got the field goal there in the third quarter, but it just was not. It was the worst quarter of the game for them. I think they played pretty bad, and I was fairly convinced at the moment they were going to lose that game, just based on how poorly they played in the third quarter. It looked like they went to the locker room, took a nap, and never woke up again. But they did finally get some stuff together in the fourth quarter, and they realized, hey, let's run the ball too. And it worked. Running the ball with Najee Harris in the fourth quarter, he had some big plays, or some larger plays, I guess you'd say, for Pittsburgh's offense at the very least. Some plays that were for 6 yards, 7 yards, 10 yards. And Najee Harris finishes the game with 24 carries for 81 yards. So not a great night efficiency-wise, but it is to get the yards on the ground. And that was working in the fourth quarter for Pittsburgh. You were getting the yards on the ground that you hadn't gotten through the rest of the game. But it took you a full quarter, the third quarter, to figure that out. And it shouldn't have. You really should have been able to make adjustments, both on offense and defense, at least midway through the third quarter. Not being able to do that almost cost you the game. But yeah, playing bully ball worked for Pittsburgh. When those big plays, the big passing plays vanished in that second half, playing bully ball up front did help out quite a bit. And credit to Najee Harris for finding some holes and dragging guys after initial contact, creating more extra yards. His contact balance was some of the best in this past draft class, and he really showed tonight. Someone who did not show out tonight, someone who's actually, I think, pretty bad, pretty awful on offense tonight. Actually, credit Pat Freiermuth for a great night. I hope they get him more involved like they did tonight. In the future, 7 targets, 7 receptions for 58 yards. That's the kind of security blanket you need if you're Ben Roethlisberger at this point in his career. Pat Freiermuth, excellent night for him. So great night for the rookie. Need to get him more involved in the future. Chase Claypool. I understand Chase Claypool was banged up earlier in the game, but 2 receptions on 7 targets for 17 yards. He was awful this game. Absolutely awful. He had a block in the back calling him early. I think it was in the first quarter maybe. He had a block in the back called him. That was absolutely dumb because he missed the block and tried to get back into the play. And that was awful. He had an offensive pass interference call in the fourth quarter, which put Pittsburgh back out of field goal range initially. So that was terrible. He was not making plays on the ball. He was off. Him and Ben were not on the same page for a large portion of this game. There were plenty of throws Ben made towards Claypool where he wasn't looking for the ball, or it was just not anywhere near him. Which again, is that on Ben? Is that on Claypool? Probably a little bit of both. But I think it was an awful game for Chase Claypool, and he just really... He has the potential of being a 1,000-yard wide receiver. So watching him be... I don't know what you would even call him. A placeholder in this game was absolutely infuriating. So Claypool needs to do better because we know he can do better. But just an awful night for him. Let's see. That last Seattle possession in regulation, the defense was far too soft. I don't think there was any realistic Steelers fan who's tapped into reality whatsoever that thought that Seattle was not going to get the field goal there. So they had 90 seconds left. The Steelers' defense was on its back heels the entire night. And Seattle go drive down the field, and they get the field goal to force overtime. Not surprising whatsoever. I think anyone who had a realistic expectation of what was going to happen there on that drive would have known that Seattle was going to score there because the defense is playing so soft. And they give too many easy completions, and frankly, they were lucky to even get as close to having Seattle rolling the clock out as they were. Speaking of that review the officials had at the end of the game, that was really dumb. I know I'm being very negative, but it's 12:15. I've gotten up at 4 a.m. for work a couple days this week. I'm very tired at this point. So, that review was stupid. It should never have happened. It was clearly a catch and fumble by Claypool recovered by Seattle. And if you were watching the game clock, I know in the stadium it went to 0, but the game clock on the broadcast was at 1 second when Geno Smith spiked the ball, so it was clearly 1 second left in the game at the very least. So there was no reason to have a review, and there was no reason for the review to take 5 or 6 minutes. So that was a waste of time. We've seen enough flags today. There was enough terrible officiating as it was. We don't need more of it. So just a waste of time. But I was really kind of ticked off that no one jumped on Freddie Swain there. I know DK Metcalf fumbles the ball. Freddie Swain jumps on it for Seattle. I don't know why a Pittsburgh Steelers didn't jump on him. I think it was Norwood. Came down and kind of touched him to make sure he was down. I don't know why Norwood's not laying down on top of him, trying to tackle him onto the ground, because that would not have been penalized immediately. If he had stayed on him and tried to like forcibly keep him on the ground after the play had ended, that would have been a penalty. But if you just dove on the guy to like tackle him and stop the play, that wouldn't have been penalized. Instead, Pittsburgh lets him get up without anyone like getting in his way. And he runs, puts the ball down, and Seattle gets that field goal to force overtime. You have to get on a guy in that point in time. Because it was a 1 second difference, really. And I know the whole review put more time on the clock, but the review is stupid. But in a realistic world, in a good world, where that review doesn't happen because it was absolutely unnecessary, it was just a 1 second difference. So if you jump on Freddie Swain and make him fight you for a second, then the game's over. You win. You don't have to go to overtime. So just something to talk about there. Pittsburgh's offense in overtime. Pittsburgh's offense is going to lose us the game, or at least lose us the opportunity to win the game in overtime based on what they did in their first possession. They get to third down and a third down play. And this is a Pittsburgh specialty recently. They didn't even throw the ball past the sticks on third down, or even to the sticks. They threw it short, and it was an excellent tackle by Seattle defensive back, and Pittsburgh has to punt the ball away. Like, what are you doing? We've seen this over and over again in Pittsburgh this year, and it's infuriating. You have to have an opportunity to get the ball to the receiver, to let him make a play beyond the sticks. None more of this, we're going to throw the ball 2 yards and just pray to God we have a guy who can juke out 4 Seattle defenders and get a first down. That has never worked. That has not worked at all this year. It didn't work against the Raiders. It didn't work against the Packers. It didn't work against the Seahawks. So stop throwing the ball 2 yards on a 3rd and 7 or 3rd and 5 call and expect your player to get a first down. That is stupid. You shouldn't even run a route that short because it doesn't work. It hasn't worked. I understand the value in having that route out there, but it just has not worked this year. So I don't know why you would bother continuously shooting yourself in the foot by doing that. Just the defense will give you that, and they'll come up and make them tackle every time. So thank God for TJ Watt. TJ Watt, to me, vanished. He was gone in third quarter. I honestly couldn't even find him on my television screen. I was looking for him, and it felt like he had just vanished off the face of the earth. So TJ Watt was gone in third quarter. Everything was horrible in third quarter. The only one who was jumping off the screen to me was Cameron Hayward on the defensive side of the ball. And TJ Watt kind of comes in and atones for going missing for those 15 minutes of football by just coming in, gets a sack in overtime. And then, I don't know if it counted as a sack. Let me check, actually. Let me look at the box score. I think it was probably not a sack, but... Oh, no, maybe it was. That hit on Geno Smith that forces the fumble that Pittsburgh recovers. Where I think it was Devin Bush who picked it up and started running the wrong direction. I was really scared there for a moment. He was going to run all the other way. But 2 sacks in overtime, I guess. The forced fumble. He had like 4 passes defense or 3 passes defense throughout the game where he got balls, his hand on the ball in midair. So, thank God for TJ Watt, man. It came in when you need him the most. Shows up in overtime. Is extremely productive and just makes game-changing plays. This is why he's a perennial Defensive Player of the Year candidate. This is why he's a perennial All-Pro. So, great play by TJ Watt. Really made the night for every Steelers fan. And then thank God for Chris Boswell. Thank God for TJ Watt. Thank God for Chris Boswell, man. Without those 2 guys, we would have been screwed tonight. Because Boswell goes 3 for 3 on field goals, 2 for 2 in extra points. It's the game winner, obviously. He's been really good for Pittsburgh throughout most of his time here. I think the one bad year, maybe after the 1 year after signing his extension, I don't think he was that good. But other than that, he's been fantastic for Pittsburgh the entire time he's been here. So Chris Boswell, excellent game tonight. We really needed him. He was more productive than any player we had offensively. Let's just say that in the second half. Maybe outside of Najee Harris. And then TJ Watt coming in clutch. Cameron Hayward consistently great throughout the entire game. Alex Highsmith had his moments as well. Pittsburgh finishes with 5 total sacks, which is exactly the kind of performance we need from the defensive line against a backup quarterback and a run-heavy team like Seattle. 10 tackles for loss. Excellent game in some aspects for some players on the defensive side of the ball. It's already almost 15 minutes into the video. Well, I'm just going to stop it there. Guys, a win is a win. It doesn't feel like one tonight. It feels like a loss. But I can laugh about it because we still came out on top. 23-20 in overtime. I'm going to bed. Good night, guys.